Yeah, I think that's a good thing. And, so just I have a bunch of questions to ask you because your
Sure.
podcast is actually really amazing when it comes to different kinds of people. I actually, and what's with the number plate? Because when I saw your, website, there were like the different number plate. And recently, I think you released a video where a lady talks about, buying a Corvette, I think so, a car, buying about a car, like talking about that. So what's with the plates? Is there any emotional connection to that?
That's a great question. The whole thing I've always been intrigued by humans' stories,
Yeah.
human interest, the human condition. I really believe that we don't take enough time to get to know each other. I know you for just a couple of minutes. I know you have a podcast. I could research you on the internet, but like who you really are, the experiences you've had that have shaped you, the challenges you've overcome, your strengths, your passions. I just find that so intriguing because it creates this matrix of a person.
Yeah.
Because we're so much more than what we do or, who we hang out with or how we dress. So that's kind of always been in the back of my mind. The license plate thing, I was in a Home Depot parking lot and I was walking by a row of cars and one of the license plates said love. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so nice. It just felt like a message,
Yeah.
like a message from the universe. Love, just love is in the parking lot. 2 weeks later, I'm in the same parking lot, walking the same row. And it was probably not the same space in the lot, but it was very close. And it was another plate that said peace. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many wonderful messages in this parking lot. Love.
Are they allowed to do
peace.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Right. So all of a sudden that kind of tuned me in to the license plate. And I started looking for messages, like what other messages are there on license plates? Now, the problem for me is that I'm a dense person when it comes to figuring out license plates. Here in the US, you can get any kind of message and you have to be pretty creative because you only get 7 to 8 characters.
Yeah.
So you have to be really, you have to figure out how you want it to be. And some of them are very confusing if you don't know what they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And even with them being sort of obvious, I never seem to quite get them. So I started posting plates on the internet, Facebook. Who do you ask when you can't figure something out? You go to Facebook and ask your hive mind, what does this mean to you? So I sort of started to become known as this license plate person among my friends. They started sending me plates they were seeing. So now I've got license plates everywhere. And it occurred to me that it's probably a lot more, just like how humans are a lot more interesting than what they look like on the surface. The license plate story probably is too. There's a reason they chose that plate because you only get one per car. So you better choose wisely. So it probably means a lot to you. So, I just kind of started to think about it and I thought, I wonder if there's something there. And if there is, what would be a way to tell the story? And I've done podcasts in the past, but I was always a co-host. So I loved the idea of being the interviewer. That's my favorite place to be. So I just started out with it and it kind of grew organically. I'm up to like 27 plates that I've told the story with. I have, I think, about 20 more in the hopper, like people that I've been in contact with. I've heard their story. I'm intrigued. I want to interview them. So I'm having a blast. Like I said, because I have a residual income business, I have time to do it because it's definitely not an income generator at this point because it's so new. But I think that when you talk about something that you're interested in, that it's like a game to me. Looking for the license plate, finding the person who owns it, getting their story, sharing it with the world. It's kind of a game to me. And I really enjoy it. People often ask when you get into that grind, you have a podcast, so you probably know about that grind. After the fun wears off, there's still a episode to do every however often you do them, let's say weekly. So even after the shine wears off, even after what my husband calls burn-in, which is an electronics term, even after that wears off, you still have a podcast to do.
Yeah.
So having something that I'm really intrigued and interested and curious about, like just today, I did a pre-interview for the interview, and she's going to be on in a couple of weeks. And her story is about how she met her husband. When we got to talking, it turns out she's a psychic, she's a medium. Like, she just became so much more interesting the more and more I talked to her. So that's the story.
Wow, that's great. The last thing you said, someone found how found her husband, being psychic and all. And I think sometimes, it's kind of, I always wanted to, hear people's, love life, like not like, the sex life, like how they actually found their soulmate and everything and stuff. But sometimes it's actually making me jealous whenever I hear it. So seriously, it's kind of, annoys me, but still it's kind of really amazing when people actually, because I have a professor and his wife and him actually was born in the same hospital. In the near bed, in the same time, in the same date, everything. It was that, and they actually came to know that after after they married. I think like 2 years, I think so. After they did the research and they came to know that. So I was really astonished. I mean, like, can I ever get a girl like that? I don't know. That's like really big no possibility of out there. But still, I think that's one of the things that's super amazing. And how do you actually get those people onto your podcast? Like it's not easy to persuade them to just ask them to come onto their show. It's not that easy to get them to talk. So how do you actually do that?
You have to be creative, that's for sure. There are podcast guest resources on Facebook. There are groups, there are directories, but the problem is none of them are like, hey, and by the way, including all of my wonderful pursuits and books that I've written and courses, I also have a vanity plate. Nobody ever actually says that. Yeah. So it is a little bit of a mystery to solve and a little bit of inspecting to do. So one thing I do, I have these postcards that I will leave on a car. If I see a car that has a license plate that I think is cool, and I'll just like fold it over and leave it in their door handle so that I'm not really touching their car. I haven't been doing that as much with COVID because I feel like there should be some social distance. Yeah. And so since COVID started, it's been a lot more internet research. I'll look for people who are posting a picture of themselves with their plates on Instagram. If somebody looks interesting and I'd love to have them on the show, I'll ask them if they have a vanity plate. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. Yeah. And I really am trying to stay very pure to, it's got to be a story that comes from your license plate. Now, this psychic I just told you about, I'm breaking my rule because the story is, and this is going to come, the license plate is CMA2. So that's the episode if anybody wants to go listen to it. But so the story is that her husband now, she met him through a series of coincidences. The first one being she saw his license plate and it stuck with her because CMA, 2 of those letters are her initials and 2 is her favorite number. And it's like an important number to her, not just her favorite number. And so it stuck in her mind. And then she ran into him because her boss was helping him after he had a fire. And then years later, she was introduced to him. And now they're married 20 years. And so the license plate was the origin of their story. The license plate is no longer on the car, so that's why I'm breaking the rule. But I love the story. And again, like I said, it just kind of connected all beautifully. And the story is going to be great. And information about her is going to be really fantastic and fascinating. So, yeah, it just kind of depends. It depends. I use the internet a lot. I'm not a DMV employee, a Department of Motor Vehicles employee, right? So I can't go search and look people up. But if I could ever find a way to identify a person from a cool plate, I will be pursuing that.
Yeah, maybe you can try with the police databases, I guess. I was about to say that, I actually saw this in a movie. They were actually, every license plate will be registered, of course, whatever license will come to be registered. So actually thinking about that, maybe if you have someone on the police department, but they would be really astonished. Like, it's not for the investigation, just for the podcast. They would be really astonished to do that as well. So, yeah.
That's right. I guess I have to make friends with some police officers. And I'm trying to get, I don't know if you know the story of the license plate P before we go. Do you know the story about that?
No.
It was pretty huge here in the U.S. So this woman, I think she's from New Hampshire, one of the New England states. And her license plate is letter P, letter B, 4, WEGO. I think that's what it is. So it's P before we go. Like I don't know if
Right.
this is a saying that you know, but like you're with your mom or your dad or your grandparents or whatever, and you're about to leave the house. They're like, wait, hold on. Before we leave, everybody go pee. Let's pee
Yeah.
before we go so we don't have to stop on the road, right?
Hmm.
So there's this whole story about it. And it was revoked because, that's considered offensive. So then there was this whole social media thing about it and it went viral. And then the governor pardoned her and said she could keep her license plate. So I'm trying to get her on the podcast because that's a perfect story, right? And,
Yeah.
she went through this whole thing with her license plate. But usually it's not as obvious who owns the plate,
Yeah.
unless they self-identify, which is rare.
Oh, and just curious, is there anyone you actually wanted to interview so much, like really really curious about them, just wanted to have them on their podcast, but they rejected it? Is there any circumstances like that?
Yes, actually there is.
How
I'm
do you
going to
cope up
call
with
them
that?
right
Let me
out.
know for that.
Well, so I'm driving down the road. This is before COVID. I'm driving down the road and there's a car in front of me who's driving in front of me and the license plate is Naughty, Nawwty. Now, do you not want to know the story behind this license plate?
Yeah.
How could you not want to know the story behind this plate, right? So I'm trying to get a picture of her plate while being at a stoplight or whatever, but I'm not getting a clear shot. And then we end up at a closed lane. Construction people, they're doing something on the road. And now we're going to be sitting there for a while. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I do this? Do I do it? Do I get out of my car and go up to her window and knock on her window and ask her to be on my, do I do it? What the hell? Let's do it. So I did. And I gave her my card and she was really into it. She was excited about it. And, she said, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And then she filled out the form on my website. So she was clearly interested even after that meet cute in the construction zone, which I did not get run over, thank goodness. And then I followed up with her a few times via email, like, hey, I want to get you on. When can we get you on? And then COVID happened. I said, hey, maybe you'll have extra time now because lots of people are sitting at home. Do you want to be on my show? I couldn't reach her. And then I decided July would be sex, love, and marriage themed because I had a couple of plates that have that theme. And so I reached out to her again. And this time I found her on Facebook and I Facebook messaged her. And I said, hey, I don't know the story behind the plate, but I'm doing this theme. And if you want to participate, this would be the perfect time. And her response was, I thought maybe you'd get the message that I'm not interested because I never replied to your emails. But since you're messaging me here, I'm not interested. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what she said. I was like, all right, well, thanks for responding finally. Now I know for sure you're not interested.
That's a relief for that.
Now I can check her off the list as a no. But I find it so fascinating because since it's such a game to me, I don't have any attachment to it.
Yeah.
And so when somebody doesn't respond or says no, I don't get upset. I don't get rejected. I don't feel badly about myself. And what I find fascinating about that is in my life, in my business, I'm talking to people all the time.
Yeah.
And so, I definitely have to make requests and follow up and have people not get back to me and have people say no. I definitely have more of a reaction to that. And so I think that, I've been unpacking that in my mind a lot because I do a lot of coaching on myself as well. Can't help it, because I'm sitting right here. And what I have realized is, in my business, it's connected to my worth because it's a business transaction. And so if they say no, they don't want to purchase from me, they don't want to partner with me, right? Then it's like they're saying in my mind, what my mind is hearing is, no, you're not worth anything. So I don't want to connect with you. You're not worth my time, my money, my effort, right? Whereas the podcast, I just have it like it's a game.
Yeah.
So it's just a fun game. And if you say no, who cares? There's plenty other more podcasts out there or license plates out there. So I think that that's what I'm really working on right now, like in this moment in time, is transforming my conversation that I have around my business so I can turn it into a fun game, have zero attachment to the outcome, because I know that then I'll have more fun
Yeah.
less stomach aches, and I'll have more success.
Yeah, I can get that because you're saying that, and having a passion as a game, like it's really great because when you're not attached that much emotionally, I'm obviously saying it's easy to win for having a rational mind. It's actually easy to win rather than having too much emotional attachment to it. And like you're saying,
Yeah.
when it comes to business, and I actually have this personal experience recently actually. So I do video editing, audio editing, and sort of graphic designing to some of my clients. And one of my clients actually recently asked for a podcast cover art, so actually making for them with the designer of mine. She actually kind of teammate, so actually to send it to her and she kind of do that. And they didn't reply for a day. I sent them this and they asked to review. They didn't reply a lot because they are kind of really busy, and I was really frustrated for 2 to 3 hours, like, why you're not replying? I mean, like, just gets done with. I was like this. But after like 4 to 5 hours, I was what I felt like, okay, if they don't care about their podcast cover art so much, why should I? If the client doesn't even care about the thing, then why should the freelancer should? So I was like, that state of mind actually really hard for me to come by, but some sort of it did. So yeah, I think this emotional logic, I mean, like, do you took do you take any training on that? Because it does it come naturally actually? Because it's really hard. Because my parents always say that if you age, the age, whenever you're 20 or 25, you'll get that maturity and everything and stuff. But I'm really not
Yeah.
into it because um, sometimes people of 30 years of age or 40 years of age are still the same, what they were doing at the age of 20 itself. They are not mature. So I'm not into the kind of age game. But how do you actually overcome that, without emotional attachment, rather than having a rational mind?
Well, the first thing is making sure that you're doing things on purpose instead of on autopilot.
Uh-huh.
We are pretty connected into who we are, and it's pretty solidified by the time we're about 7 years old. And there are a couple of different life events through your teens and your 20s that can
Yeah.
impact you, but we're pretty locked in by the time we're a kid. Now, think about this. I'm 7 years old. I'm making decisions. I'm making assumptions. I'm deciding what something means from a 7-year-old's perspective with
Yeah.
very little life experience. And now I take that into my entire life with me. So unless I go to an on-purpose evaluation of why and how things occur to me and how I think about things and my mindset about things, I'm thinking about them from the perspective of about 4 to 7 years old.
Yeah.
So how mature am I really? How broad am I thinking? Probably pretty narrow. So that's really the first step, is to start thinking on purpose about how you think about things and why you think about things. We don't realize it, but we are on autopilot for most of our lives. We're just going through the motions. We're hardly listening to each other. I saw a quote recently: you can listen just to respond, or you can listen to understand, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
And we're just really on autopilot through most of our lives. It's why you can drive home from work and not remember which way you went because you've done it so many times before. You can eat a meal and not even remember what you had, the next day, because we're not doing things on purpose. So I would say that's the first step. And then the next piece is really being responsible for your role in every relationship and in every conversation. If I just show up and do what I do and hope for the best, and then, well, it wasn't my fault, then there's always going to be this disconnect. But if I can show up and absolutely 100% be responsible for my impact, my contribution to you, good or bad, now we have somewhere to work from. And if we can both show up to that relationship on purpose and being 100% responsible, then now what could you create? Some pretty powerful stuff. I was late for a call yesterday. I was 10 minutes late and I had no excuse. And here's the thing. Most people who show up late for something, they'll always have an excuse. Oh, my dog, my cat, my child, my husband, my breakfast, my laundry, right? We'll always have an excuse. But I didn't need to make an excuse because I was just willing to be responsible for the fact that I was late and I kept the person waiting. And when I'm able to do that, now I actually get to hear how it was for them that I was late. Yeah. And the person was mad, pissed, angry. They had to get up early to do this call. They didn't want to get up. They got up anyway. They kept their end of the bargain. And then I just waltz in whenever, like angry.
Yeah.
Now, would you typically want to hear all of that from a person? No, you avoid that. I don't want to hear that. That's very uncomfortable for me. But I was willing to be responsible because my relationship with the person is really important. And I wanted to make sure that we both are part of the relationship on purpose and that we both feel valued. And it would devalue her to act like, what can you say? 10 minutes, whatever my reaction could have been. So I just listened to what she had to say. I apologized. I did this process called recreating her communication. And by the end, everything was fine. So the program where I learned this process is called the Landmark Communication Curriculum. And it's a worldwide program. And it really changed my whole perspective. I've done a lot of work on myself over the years, but this is where I really finally learned that every relationship I have, every communication I have there's an impact on the other person.
Yeah.
And my whole life I was kind of just like a victim. So if I'm a victim, I don't have to be responsible for anything. It's all happening to me. But as soon as I can have the ownership, now anything is available to me. Anything is possible. It's really leveled up my business, my relationships, my marriage.
Yeah, and right, because it's not easy to keep the relationship. I know that it's kind of really hard when it comes to like sometimes it's not able to be like satisfy those people. Sometimes it's extremely hard because we will never have expectations of them, but they might have us. So it's like even though it's a two-way kind of connection when it comes to a colleague or anyone. We may not even know what they actually want, but still we might have to satisfy like a psychic, I think so. So yeah, and think of that autopilot thing you're saying, and you're right, because I had an incident once when I was actually driving from my home to my sister-in-law's house, to pick her up. I went there, I picked her up, and I was on my way home, to my home, having my sister-in-law in my back of a bike. She actually said that she was actually talking a lot. I didn't actually, really actually hear it out or anything. And she was actually, tapping my shoulder and saying that, "Are you alive? What are you doing? I was talking to you." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I was actually dreaming." You were driving. Don't dream when you were driving. It was like that because I had no idea what I was doing. There was some thought that was in my subconscious mind. Why was this going on? And she was really afraid because it's not easy for her to, account for that. I'm like, she's my brother's wife and she might be truly afraid of her brother. Brothers is not place of thing. And yeah, I can totally understand that. And yeah, this is something that's really interesting. I found it on a website actually. You have typed that there is one thing that may be holding you back from having everything you want, and without it, success will be out of reach. So you said that if you want to know what's it, then contact you and everything and stuff. But I'm going to ask you what's it.
Great. Let's talk about it. So it's really self-worth. Self-worth is the bottom line. Wow. You can write a really wonderful goal statement, get a really amazing coach, set up a business plan, invest money in marketing, hire a great team. You can do all the steps and do all the actions that it would take to be successful. But if you do not believe that you deserve to be successful, then you're not going to have the level of success you could have if you had the self-worth to back up all of your actions.
Yeah.
You'll find it to be really hard. People will betray you. They'll let you down. You'll end up with bad people on your team instead of great people on your team. Arrangements will break down. Commitments will be you'll have a really hard time succeeding.
Yeah.
And it'll be a ton of work. And the reason for that is because if you don't believe you deserve it, then all the work you're doing is going against how you're built. Yeah. So what we need to do, I believe, is go back a step. Go back to the beginning. If I have a thought like, I'm hungry, that probably didn't start with I'm hungry.
Yeah.
It probably started with, maybe I saw a banana at the corner of my eye. And maybe I saw the banana because I was thinking I was thirsty. And maybe I was thirsty because I was talking. You know what I mean? Like, we have this series of thoughts that go with all of our actions. If we could go back all the way to the original thought that started that whole series, that's really where to look. And the original thought is about whether or not you believe you deserve to have success, happiness, joy, abundance, whatever it is. Because once you get your self-worth in check, and it is an ongoing process, because this is all what we've been talking about. It's all set up when you're a kid. And I can tell you that my self-worth from my childhood was very low.
Yeah.
I believed that I was not worth much. And I had lots of evidence throughout my life that proved it, from moving around a lot as a kid to how I was treated when I was in high school by the different, cliques and things, to my performance in college, to, my first job, like everything that I did. And I'm not saying I didn't have success. I actually had a lot of success because I worked so hard to try to overcome how crappy I knew I was. Yeah. So I worked really hard to overcome the fact that nobody was going to want me anywhere if they knew how bad I was. That's imposter syndrome, if you've ever heard of that phrase. As I started to unpack my self-worth and really evaluate it and realize how low it was, I realized that that's probably why things are so hard. So I have this phrase, I share it in that video. And the phrase is, I believe I deserve all the best life has to offer. Now that's just a series of words that maybe mean something to somebody, maybe they don't. Yeah. But if you were to actually close your eyes and say those words to yourself, and then sit quietly, and then see, and then see what your body does and your mind does. And see what your mind and your body do. You can see if you really believe it. Because typically, if you have a low self-worth, when you say this phrase, I believe I deserve all the best life has to offer, and you kind of listen in to how you react to that, you'll get a lot of disagreement, argument, deep inside, stuff you don't say out loud, right? This is like the inner soul we're talking to. When I started to do this practice, I would say this almost like a protection against bad feelings. Something bad would happen. No, I believe I deserve it. It was like I would use it as like a shield. The more I said it, we can talk ourselves into anything. Yeah. We can brainwash ourselves for success or for failure. Yeah. And so I started to brainwash myself that I believe that I deserve all the best life has to offer. And my life ever since, it has not become a fairy tale, but things are easier. The people I'm working with are more engaged. My success comes with less effort. My income has gone up. My quality of life is better. And I still have work to do. We all do. Yeah. Right? We'll always still have work to do. And the appreciation for the good is in the contrast. So I know there will always be things that come up, challenges to face, lessons to learn, but I'm having so much more fun now. And when you talk to me, you're getting the real me instead of this fabrication that I think you'll appreciate and you'll like. I'm quite the chameleon. I moved around a lot as a kid. And so I can be whatever a person wants me to be to try and fit in. And I don't do that now.
Yay. And that's why actually I can understand, because I actually, changed 5 schools until my 12th grade. So I can totally understand your feeling. And the funniest part is that people that I've studied with, they actually remember me, but I can't remember them. That's the major stuff, because 2 years I actually changed schools, but the last 6 years I actually stayed in one school. And when people came to me and said, "Hey Jeffrey, how are you, man?" I was like, "What? Who are you?" That's the first question. Who are you? First of all, just say it, then we can talk. Because there'll be different people with the same names and everything, and it was really, really hard to get by first. And in the first day of college, this happened. A friend of mine, his name's called Karthik, and what he actually said was, "Well, hey Jeffrey, how are you?" I said, like, yeah, yeah, I'm fine. Who are you, by the way? I mean, like, that was the question. And he said, "Dude, I'm Karthik." And the thing is, he remembers everything about me when it was like, pre-kindergarten and lower kindergarten. That was age
Wow.
where we were actually, friends with together. But I don't remember anything about him. He remembers me exactly as I was, what food I, had when I was, in that school. I don't remember him at all. Still, I'm really feeling guilty. He's like my best buddy right now, but still, I still don't remember, what happened that day. So yeah, I think it's kind of a really an awesome thing. But it's okay.
So let me ask you
Yeah.
a question. You said that you still hold on to the guilt that you
Mhm.
feel from him not knowing you and you not know from him knowing you
Yeah.
and you not knowing him.
Yeah.
So do you get the importance of that? Like, to you, that's just part of your experience. It's part of your tapestry. But do you get what impact that has on you?
Yeah, kind of, because whenever he says, like, "Dude, we have done this, we have done that," and I have no memory of it, and it kind of hurts, it kind of stings like a bee. And I would like, yeah, dude. I would like, I just, nod, and yeah, I really get that importance, and it's not an easy thing to digest, but yeah, I think it's really important for know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you another question.
Mhm.
Do you think that your feeling of guilt
Mhm.
impacts your relationship with him?
No, I guess. Interestingly, no, I think.
I would disagree. Now, I'm over here and I don't know your
Yeah, I can
relationship,
get that. Yeah, it's interestingly
but
no
here's
for
what
me.
I would
Yeah.
assert. Yeah, I'm going to
Mhm.
assert something right now, which is every time he says, "Oh, do you remember this and that?" and you say yes, and then you feel bad about it because you're not telling him the truth. You're feeling guilty that you don't remember. You're having all these emotional responses to it.
Yeah.
I would say that there's an impact on your relationship because you can never be 100% authentic with him. You can never fully let your guard down with him
Mhm.
because there's like this unspoken guilt that you carry around that's between you. And I'm sure your relationship is great, and maybe it's great enough for you.
Mhm.
And these are the little tiny things that we don't even think of as very important,
Mhm.
but that can really impact a relationship. So maybe your relationship is good and it could be amazing, but a lot of times the relationship is okay and it could be good. If we were just to look for those little things and then take responsibility for them and then do something. Even if it's just inside yourself, I'm not even saying you have to go to him and say, "Listen, I have to tell you something. We have to have a talk." You don't even need to
That
do
that's
that.
that's a bad phrase. That's the worst phrase ever in Hollywood. In every single film, that's the worst phrase ever.
Yes, but only through breakdown comes breakthrough.
Yeah.
There's this concept called perturbation.
Mhm.
The word perturb comes
Yeah.
from there. Perturbation says that things are set up a certain way.
Mhm.
Let's look at a wall. Like, the wall is built a certain way. The bricks go here, the mortar is in between. Everything is set up so that that wall stands.
Mhm.
Perturbation is a concept where something happens and the wall is destroyed.
Mhm.
Now, in cellular level, they've actually looked at these kinds of events. And what ends up happening is, with immunity and healing, what the body does, so maybe a wall is not a good example because in physical space this wouldn't happen, but the thing actually rebuilds itself, but
Mhm.
now it's stronger. So it can withstand what just happened. So it would be like if the wall was taken down with a big tidal wave and then it built itself back up, but now it's reconfigured itself so that if a tidal wave ever comes back,
Yeah.
it will withstand it, right? So it's sort of like how immunity works. But if you think about that in life, if we can break down something with a big event, like, oh my gosh, telling my best friend this thing I've been carrying around, that's perturbation. You're going to create an explosion. But when we put it back together, it becomes stronger as a result.
But
so I'm
putting
not
back
telling you
together
what to
is actually
do.
the hardest thing. Yeah.
I know, of course. Like my friend that I was late for the call, I could have done so many things. And in my olden days, I would have made excuses. I would have felt bad, but I wouldn't have taken responsibility because I didn't want to hear how mad she was. I was going to hopefully like just get it past us, but it would always have been this thing between us. Like, I can't be counted on. There would always have been this thing. So instead I just owned my mistake and I listened to all the things she had to say, and she was mad. So, not to say that she, tore my head off or anything, but she was mad. It was very clear.
Yeah.
But I was willing to be with her anger because I was late.
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is it was my responsibility. So, this is just one example but the point is, in all of our lives, we all have these little nuggets that when they're in the way, they can start to add up to big, huge piles in between us, which can really sort of like these unspoken communications that we hold in for fear of what it might do to the relationship. But it could actually be tearing the relationship down because they're there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because I have this really bad habit. Like it's not like, how to say, a major stuff, but when someone actually breaks my trust, or I mean, like, I don't trust a lot of people actually, like 6 to 7 people. That's the maximum people that I trust, like, entirely up to my life. So if they actually question my trust or breaks my trust, I literally want to kill those people. Seriously, that's how the rage actually is come, because I don't know that trust. I actually know it's really bad, thinking about that itself. But when it's and I actually tried to hit a friend of mine because he broke my trust once, and actually went there and I was about to hit him, and I don't know, I calmed down somehow because that spark was gone. Because every single relationship will have a spark. Saying that you can trust him, you can just say whatever you want. That'll be a spark. But if that spark is gone, that's it. No matter, it's possible to reiterate it, but still, no matter how much it's trying, it's not working out. So yeah, when you're asking me that questions, I said no. I kind of had that thing, but there will be circumstances when it comes, like you said, when he asked this and I'm saying this yes, and it kinds of things. But most of the times it would be good. And yesterday this incident happened. Actually, he was actually asking me something, and did you say this to that person? I was like, why are you asking me? Why are you not trusting me? How can you even ask this question? That's what the first thing that I had to ask him. I mean, like, if you trust me, you won't ask that question. I mean, like, yeah, clarification is right, but the way of asking and everything is different. And yeah, I think if it comes to philosophy and stuff, I'll talk day and day and day, because the things that I've experienced, I mean, like, many people obviously do, they've been through many experiences, many stories, and everything they learned. I think that's going to be a totally an awesome thing. So yeah. I mean, like, you actually, so I'm supposed to be the interviewer right now, but you asked me a lot of questions, and you took.
I love to interview. It's true. That's why I don't do co-hosting anymore.
I should have taken that point into my head. I kind of just let it all out in the middle. So.
I'm also a coach, so that's one of the things that I do when I'm coaching someone is I'm listening for threads that we can inspect and see. And at the end of the day, it's your life. And it's your choice. A coach can only guide and advise. And, my whole motto is I'm here to help you win whatever winning looks like to you.
Yeah.
And so if what you want to work on is, business, and what you want to work on is your social media, if what you want to work on is your relationships, whatever, like, I'll work with people on whatever is there for them that's blocking where they want to go, which is what winning is for them. Yeah. But those kinds of things, they can sneak up on you. And there's a saying you may have heard, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that saying?
Yeah.
So if you have this kind of thing with trust, with your close circle, then chances are the trust factor might be impacting your business relationships as well.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it looks different because it's business to business, but maybe it's from that same core thing that stems into different areas of your life. So, unsolicited coaching opportunity. Sorry.
Yeah, when I asked the question itself, I was like wondering, I mean, like, okay, I'm going to break a secret, instead of signing up to my email and everything, I actually asked her straight up my mouth. So yeah, I think that's a trick when it comes to podcasting. It's just that you'll never know what's coming up on you, and what do you say?
That's right.
You'll never know about that.
And here's the best part about it.
Yeah.
As the podcaster, interviewer, host, you have complete authority. You could remove it.
Yeah.
So I could ask you anything. We could talk about all your secrets, and then you could just delete it before you put it out.
Yeah, and doing face-to-face is actually really major thing than that, because you can see the face, you can clearly understand what the person is thinking, and it's really kind of at heart, it's really hard to do that. And yesterday I was having this podcast with a person called Catherine, and she was saying that you're really good, because when you said that you wanted to do a video podcast itself, I was really astonished, because she has done a lot of interviews and everything, but when she was asked as a podcast guest and everything, no one ever asked to turn on the video for that. So she
Really?
was for her as a guest, it was never a video podcast, just that audio only. So yeah, she was like, just that. I mean, like, I was really astonished. I mean, like, okay, maybe, I don't know. I always like to talk to people a lot. Just kind of nature, I think so. So yeah.
I love the video. I've always do a video podcast unless they request not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then that's the major thing. And this is actually coming out right out of the podcast that I actually always ask my guests is that who was just before that, is it morning or evening there? Night? Anything else?
It is late morning.
Late morning. Okay, awesome. So,
actually, I think it just turned afternoon. It's like 11:30, 12.
Okay, so morning. Okay, so this is a bit. So who was the last person that you actually made smile today?
You have been smiling. But before you, I guess I would have to say my husband. We work together, we live together, we are quarantine buddies for the pandemic.
Yeah.
Our relationship is stronger than it was before the pandemic. And we were working on a project right before this and going through some stuff. And we were looking at our business and how much it's been growing, making some plans, creating some goals. So I think that he was smiling through that.
Wow, that's great. And it's really amazing.
Great question.
Thank you for that. And actually, I can take credit for it, because a guest on my show, he actually said this, and he was actually asked this question. The question wasn't related to me either. He was actually asked somewhere in that, and it really intrigued me, because when you actually when you are asked this question and you actually wait like 10 seconds to answer, then you're not impacting anyone's life. Because if you could say it in 5 seconds, 6 seconds, then you obviously know that you're making someone smile. Then obviously you are actually impacting someone else's life. So yeah, I was really wondering. I'm really glad no one asked this question me yet. So I was really happy with it. Don't ask me, please don't. So I was really happy.
I was just about to. I felt like that was an invitation.
I know you were about to. So it's actually my mom, obviously. We actually talk a lot. So it's my mom. So the answer is being clear.
That's nice. So
yeah, and okay, so I think you should actually drink your water right now, because I'm going to do a rapid fire question. So it's actually 3 questions.
Oh no, I'm ready.
Yeah, it's 3 questions, and you were actually the last episode of my podcast, season 3 of the podcast. So I think I just wanted to do this real quick. So
sure.
You can answer in a line or 2. That's totally fine. But it's actually simple question, so don't get too excited or too.
No, I'm nervous.
It's a simple one. So shall we start?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, so the first question is, what do you like about podcast? Just one or two.
I love the different people I get to meet, and it is just a completely new community that I was never part of before, and I love all the people in it.
Awesome. So what you don't like about the podcast?
The work involved in getting a podcast episode ready to go, like all the different tiny pieces that have to be done so that it is not only complete, but also well promoted.
Awesome. So what are the problems that you're actually facing in the podcasting, right now?
Getting the audience, because I have such a broad guest-based, I don't have just entrepreneurs or just health professionals. So it's, finding the audience for something so broad, even though plates are so niche.
So there's still two more questions. So if you have never done a podcast, what might you have done other than that? If you decided you were going to start a podcast, but you didn't, so what would you do elsewise?
I would probably do something YouTube based, where it was video based instead of podcast episode based.
Okay. So one final question is that if you were, driving on your way down to the road, and you were actually, and please don't take it in a negative way, and you were actually hit by a car and you are in your dying last breath. So who was the last person that you would obviously think before going? Just asking it in a positive, because whenever I think of this question, people might think that I'm like, a pessimistic person is kind of.
The first thing that came to my mind is this is like if you are given an Oscar and in your acceptance speech, you forget to thank someone and they know it.
Yeah.
And they hate you forever. Yeah. Like you're asking one person, and I can't pick one. I have this here's how I'm going to answer the question. I have this very amazing, close-knit family community that I've created. And of course, it includes my husband because we are partners in life. And it includes my father because we are spiritual explorers together. And it includes my mother because we are best friends. And it includes both of my sisters because I feel like a guide to them because I'm so much older. So I wouldn't be able to just think of one. And so that's my,
that's actually a safe zone answer. Okay. It's not actually a rapid fire answer, but I think, I
know.
But I think, you actually mentioned your husband at first. So I guess I know, taking as a priority concern, I'll take that as an answer. So I mean, like, yeah, okay, if you want to play this to your, parents, you can, but I'm not going to. I don't know what they will say to it. Wow.
All right, so I failed the rapid fire quiz.
Well, this is my first time doing it, so I think there's no failure or success in the podcast. I think so.
Okay, so this is the bar other people can beat.
Yeah.
How about that? Yeah.
That's an awesome one. So one final question before closing is that
Sure.
What do you actually think is the best tip that you can provide to a fellow podcaster, like in your niche, like someone wants to do something really much different? What tip would you give? Like that's the best tip in the whole world that you can provide.
I think that I have so many. I feel like I should write about podcasting from everything I've been learning. The biggest question I hear from new podcasters is, how do I promote my show to grow my audience? And so that's the answer I'm going to give, the tip. The best place to find listeners for your podcast is people who listen to podcasts. Because even though there are so many podcasts, the listener base is still growing. So being able to guest on other people's podcasts will access an entire new audience that didn't know about you. I am constantly adding podcasts to my subscriber list, because I hear them interviewed on a podcast that I found somewhere else. So finding places where you can get your voice out is really important, but it's super easy to do these days because there are so many people with podcasts that are looking for interviewees. So create a one sheet about what you offer as a guest, add yourself to some podcast guest Facebook groups, look for podcast guest directories. They're popping up all over the place right now, and just start putting yourself out there. It's easier than you think to guest on other people's podcasts.
Wow, that's totally awesome. And, I was actually wondering, to have, me being featured on other people's podcast guests, because they're all like, Facebook groups. But I'm thinking I'm not actually ready for it yet, because it's not easy to ask questions to. And because I always loved asking questions, and, I always love talking, but when people ask me the same question, like, how did your podcast start, all that, sometimes they will ask this question, and I was like, every single time when they asked, I will be wondering, how did it all start? That I will ask the question. It's not easy to to recollect everything and stuff, but every single time it's a hard thing. So yeah, I think promotion actually really plays an important role. And just now I'm actually, as I do video editing itself, so I kind of create a lot of micro content from these episodes, and promote it on the podcast and stuff. So yeah, I think my audience would be really love to have that as a really important thing. So is there anything else you want to ask me? Not
Well,
not life related, not like I'm putting that bar
safe
like
questions only.
yeah.
I mean, you had some zingers for me too. Those were some pretty rapid
Well, I'm the
fire.
interviewer, right? I'm the interviewer, like you said.
Well, I do have one more thing to offer, if you'd like it.
Yeah, sure.
About I'm not ready yet to be interviewed. I would say, what kind of questions you ask.
Yeah.
So the two things I would do to prep myself to be interviewed, one, what are you most passionate about and most expert in? Like a list of those things. And then two, create a mock interview list of what you would ask someone, and then just see how you would answer it.
Yeah.
Like journal how you would answer it, because the hardest way to answer something is the first time that you have to kind of get your brain around it. The more times you have to answer a question, the easier it comes, because your brain's kind of been chewing on it in between the times you were asked. So those are the two things that I would share as unsolicited advice, but definitely just start doing it. There are a lot of new podcasts, so the bar is pretty low of expectation. You're not up against, Tim Ferriss and Russell Brunson as guests on the guest list, right? So the bar is pretty low of what's expected, because they're new, they're learning too. There's so many of those, so many opportunities. What are you looking, this is my question for you, is my final question. So what are you looking to achieve with your podcast? What good is it? What contribution is it to the world?
So if someone is going to start something, let's say a business or something in life or anything like that. So if in case someone is going to start a podcast, and they can actually come into my content, and after seeing that, if they start their podcast, then my goal is achieved. Simple as that. And actually it's been done by one person. Actually, someone actually saw my post, and she actually texted me that, what are the mics I can do that and everything and stuff. And I actually interviewed a lot of people, like 50 people I have interviewed on my show, so I kind of have knowledge from them that what they have said, and did my research as well. So I said her to do this and do that, and she actually thanks so much, I'm going to start my podcast. And she did start her podcast, and I was like, okay, so 25% I think I didn't done my job well. So I mean, like, yeah, I don't have a huge Instagram following and everything and such, but when people find my content, they will obviously DM me saying that can I come on to your show to as a guest, or can you suggest me this. So if that's the thing, means obviously that maybe I'm a little bit of friendly to do that and podcasting and stuff. So yeah, I don't use that to get it in my head, because if it once got into your head, it's a total game changer. So
yes,
yeah, I think that's the only thing I want to achieve. If someone looks at that content, starts a podcast, then I'm just happy as
I love it. So inspiring others to find their own voice in podcasting.
That's
beautiful.
A nice way of putting it.
Good answer.
I should have used a sentence. That's really
well,
nice.
That's one of the things that I do as a coach is listen to what you say and hearing what's behind it, so that we can actually unpack it and see what's there to discover.